First off, your money is just pocket change to me. Acting all high and mighty over a mere $2,000 monthly rent. Go ahead, stop paying. They both looked at me triumphantly. With pleasure. John and Alex must have thought I'd come crying and apologizing to them. They were surprised by my response. Fine by me. I'm dead serious about stopping the payments. With that, I left the house. And that's how I cut ties with John, Alex, and the family. My name is Eleanor. I'm a 47-year-old. I married John 18 years ago. I met him on the dating site. I'm plain-looking, short, and was nicknamed Sunfish as a kid. I was always teased by everyone growing up. Because of that, I never had much self-confidence. For me, with low self-esteem, marriage was a distant dream. John always looked down on me from the start. He never treated me to a meal, not even once. We often split the bill, and I often paid. Moreover, John was divorced with one child. Since it was my first marriage, my parents were strongly against it. But I never had the slightest intention of breaking up with John. It happened one day. While on a date, John proposed to me. You know, I think marrying you wouldn't be so bad. His condescending way of saying it shocked and honestly hurt me. I often daydreamed about the ideal words and scenario for a proposal. I wished for kinder words when being proposed to for marriage. Additionally, John's 14-year-old son, Alex, never warmed up to me. I dismissed it as typical teenage behavior, but he's never looked me in the eye while speaking, even to this day. But none of that bothered me. I truly believe this marriage proposal was my last chance. Marriage was my dream. Approaching 30, I was indeed feeling desperate. I thought if I let this chance slip, I'd never marry again. So, I went against my parents' wishes and married him. In hindsight, my parents were right. If I had followed my parents' advice, I think I could have avoided this nightmarish situation. Looking back, this was the entrance to hell. The hell started from the first day of marriage. I don't mind if you keep your job, John had told me when we decided to marry. I thought he was understanding, but I was wrong. On the first day of marriage, John said something shocking. You'll pay the rent here. What? I didn't understand what John was saying at first. So, you're gonna pay the rent. That's what you work for, isn't it? From John's tone, I could feel there was no love for me. He seemed to view me not as his wife, but as a source of money. I had thought John's reluctance to treat me to meals was because he was frugal and sensible, but maybe I was wrong. Perhaps he just wanted to be lazy. John always looked down on women, not just me. His failure in marriage was also due to Alex. He often said, just because you're a woman. Or, since you're a woman. Whenever John watched TV and saw a drama featuring a successful woman, he always badmouthed them. Being a woman and daring to be a doctor. I would never want to be a patient of yours if I were in need. John's complaints were usually when he had been drinking. And he never had the courage to say these things directly to someone's face, so he'd either mutter them to the TV or under his breath. Hearing this always made me feel terrible and lose my appetite. John was not just stingy, he was all for getting anything free. At local festivals, if they offered free local vegetables to early arrivals, he'd always send me to line up. He'd show up just in time to collect vegetables for both of us. He would sign up for every sample and free trial. And it was always my job to turn down the follow-up sales pitches and persuasions. John also loved to make complaints. If there was even a slight issue with a purchased product, he'd definitely complain. His complaints were not loud or aggressive, but persistent and time-consuming. John once made a complaint at a supermarket and spent hours grumbling, even causing a female part-time worker to cry. Since that incident, I haven't shopped at that supermarket. I'm too embarrassed to show my face. John's complaining wasn't limited to outside, he did it at home too. He was meticulous, always nitpicking. This laundry, the collar's still dirty. John points out stains on shirts he's been wearing for years, stains that just won't come out. I take the shirt without talking back. If I did, I'd be in for a long lecture. He also nitpicks about other things, dirt in the corner of the entrance, water spots on the windows, damp hand towels. Dealing with John's complaints, my day just ends. John is not just a complainer, he's also harsh with people. He treats me like I'm some sort of servant. Since we got married, any kindness John had towards me has vanished. While dating, there was little kindness, but he showed some concern for me. Now, he has no hesitation in his demands. Even in the middle of the night, he'd send me out to buy liquor, or if he ran out of snacks, he'd order me to make more. He doesn't care if I'm asleep in the bedroom. Even after midnight, he'd come to the bedroom and kick my thigh. "Hey, I'm out of booze. Go to the liquor store and get me some beer." And when I go, he'd then demand, "Make some snacks." So, I often go to work sleep-deprived. John drinks heavily. Because of that, he often calls in sick to work, hungover. When he drinks till he passes out, he won't get up the next morning. Even on weekdays, he's sometimes passed out. On those days, it's my job to call his office and say, he's sick and won't make it in. Once, when I forgot to call, John berated me. "Typical of you, not taking care of your husband when he's sick and just making things worse. If you're useless, at least don't cause trouble." He drinks heavily and then can't get up because of the hangover. His hangovers are all his own doing. But he acts like it's my fault. When John's sleeping off a hangover, I try to be as quiet as possible. Once, when I used the vacuum cleaner, he got so angry, he lectured me for 2 hours. Now, when John's home, I use a broom to clean. John usually drinks when he's at home, so I can hardly ever use the vacuum cleaner. John's lectures are long. This is because he repeats the same things over and over. This time, I had to apologize for about 2 hours continually. I was mentally exhausted from John's treatment, and it had become a habit for me to live in a way that wouldn't upset him. John would drink and lead a sluggish life. He cleverly used the company's policies to take time off. I was worried he might have been fired since he hadn't gone to work for so long. But when I expressed my concern, John muttered, "It's paternity leave." I was baffled about how he managed to get paternity leave for a high school-aged son. But I couldn't question it. John was skilled at interpreting the company's systems and policies in a way that suited him. He was self-indulgent, always finding excuses to take time off from work. He never did overtime or worked on weekends. He used up all his paid leave. Yet, he didn't plan family trips or anything. He mostly just lounged around at home, drinking. The most he'd do was go to a bar by himself. John's favorite phrase was, "I married you, didn't I?" Even if I didn't voice my complaints, if I showed dissatisfaction on my face, he'd inevitably say this. John could easily tell when I was unhappy. He was very sensitive about being seen in a bad light. This must be his way of navigating life. Our son Alex has handsome features and is popular among his peers. He brags about being scouted as a model. Like John, Alex is also harsh with me. He refuses to eat food he dislikes. Worse, if such food is on the table, he complains. Alex, too, complains persistently like John. Once, when I handed him socks that were inside out after washing, he complained for a week. Alex attended a public high school and his grades were above average. John didn't like spending money on anyone but himself and wasn't interested in Alex's education. He's going to have to work after he graduates from high school, John had declared. I wanted Alex to go to university when I thought about his future. I thought that without it, Alex might struggle in the future, so I decided to send him to tutoring. Knowing John wouldn't contribute, I decided to pay the tutoring fees from my income. However, this made our financial situation even tighter. John gave me some money for living expenses, but frankly, it wasn't enough. After months of trying to make ends meet, I asked John for more money. This request came after months of trying to make ends meet and realizing it was impossible despite all my efforts to cut back. John snorted and coldly said, "If you can't manage with the money I give, you're a failure as a wife. Figure it out." That was the end of the conversation. I could only hang my head. In the end, I decided to pay for the rent, Alex's tuition, and our living expenses from my income and savings. Alex started going to tutoring and preparing for the entrance exams. At first, he wasn't keen, but I persuaded him about the ease of university admission and job prospects. Additionally, I managed the study schedule, printed past exam papers, took care of health management, and frequently communicated with the tutoring teachers. I also helped in deciding on the desired university and supported the study process. The university admission results were checked online. I had a feeling that Alex wouldn't tell me the results. When I saw the results, I was so happy that I just slumped down on the spot. Thus, Alex was able to go to university. From the time show passed the university entrance exam until now, I haven't received even a single thank you from him. Alex isn't very expressive, so it was hard to tell if he was happy. He was proudly talking on the phone to his friends about being able to go to university. I got into university, man. It was seriously a breeze. I could hear him talking boastfully on the phone with his friends in the living room. He seemed happy, but his way of expressing it was demeaning to others, which unsettled me. When I told John about the university acceptance, the first thing he asked was, "How are you going to manage the money?" John hates spending money on anything other than himself. I told him that I was paying for everything from my savings and salary, and had also applied for a student loan. Hearing that, John seemed convinced and finally said to Alex, "Congratulations on your acceptance." The loan was not a grant but a low-interest one, so I would likely be the one repaying it. In university, Alex, who had been idling away, said he wanted to study abroad. Honestly, I was scared we'd run out of money, but for Alex's sake, I withdrew my fixed deposit to fund it. When I checked Alex's social media during his study abroad, it didn't seem like he was studying at all, more like he was just on a vacation abroad. Around this time, I was talking to my boss about possibly getting a raise. After graduating, Alex got a job at a decent IT company, though not top tier. Incidentally, his study abroad brought no results, he still couldn't speak English. Alex began spending more time away from home, leaving me alone with John more often, making life even more suffocating. Alex introduced me to his fiancée. She seemed like a kind and quiet woman. She reminded me of myself somehow. I had a bad feeling. Could Alex be thinking the same as John? Maybe he's found his next source of income and a candidate for a servant. Then John bluntly said, "Alex and his wife will live here. You have no place here, Eleanor. Sleep in the storage room by the entrance." Hearing that, something in me snapped. Unbelievable. Do they even realize how much I've done for this family? I worked as they told me to, paying for everything from rent to living expenses and education fees. I had a faint hope that they might appreciate or acknowledge me. But all that was in vain. To think that they would say such terrible things to me. Alex and John looked at me in shock. "Do you know why Alex was able to go to college?" Alex, looking awkward, tried to smirk it off. I vented my anger on Alex. "Your father never planned to send you to college. I was the one who paid for it and helped you with your studies to get you there." "I didn't know that," Alex retorted, looking away. "Don't start with that now. When did I ever ask to go to college?" "That's right, nobody asked you to do it, Eleanor. You did it on your own." "How can you say that? You all just see me as a convenient ATM, don't you?" Alex snorted derisively. "Now you bring this up?" He looked down on me. "You're only good for earning money and supporting us, so don't get all high and mighty." He seemed to thoroughly belittle me. "Enough." I couldn't take it anymore and stood up, kicking the chair. John grabbed my shoulder and forced me back into the seat. Then, with a cold tone, he said to me, "Hey Eleanor, how can you talk to Alex like that? Have you gone downhill not just in looks but in character too?" What cruel words. I had endured for 18 years. But I had reached my limit. "Stop it, John, and don't encourage Alex. He's not getting carried away. It's just how it is. You're just that in this house." Shocked and angry, tears welled up in my eyes. Seeing this, John and Alex scornfully said to me, "A woman like you, we never really accepted you as a wife. What are you getting all high and mighty about?" "That's right. Just because you contribute some money doesn't mean you can act all important." I glared at Alex. "If that's how you feel, I won't contribute any more money. Go ahead. I'm fed up with living with you anyway." "Fine, let's cut ties completely. You both have jobs, so you won't have trouble with money." "That's right, we can manage without your money. Besides, I'm getting married. After all, your money is just pocket change. Acting all high and mighty over a mere $2,000 monthly rent. Go ahead, stop paying." They both looked at me triumphantly. With pleasure. John and Alex must have thought I'd come crying and apologizing to them. They were surprised by my response. "Fine by me. I'm serious about stopping the payments." Surprise and fear appeared on John's face. John was inherently cowardly and weak-willed. He crumbles when confronted. "Well, it's fine. You're useless to us now anyway. Understood. I'll happily do that. I'm leaving this house and will have nothing more to do with you. With that, I left the house. That's how I cut ties with John and Alex. 3 months later, John called me. I was reluctant to answer, but I didn't want him to hold anything against me later, so I picked up. Eleanor? It's me, John, he said, his voice panicked. I briefly put down the phone and took a deep breath. I'm listening, what is it? Please, help me. I had suspected they might start struggling financially, but his panic was extraordinary. What? Why now? I thought I had cut ties with you all. I tried to stay calm and composed, even though my heart was racing. Don't say things like that. We're really in a tight spot right now. Can you just pay the rent again, just for now? We're family, after all. We were still legally married, as the divorce proceedings were ongoing. The discussions hadn't made much progress, so I was talking to a lawyer about going for a court divorce. Legally, we were still a couple, but I saw no reason nor had the inclination to help this man. What are you talking about? Who was it that called my money just pocket change? I might have said that, but I'm really in trouble now. John's voice quivered, sounding tearful. However, I knew this was just an act, his way of trying to worm his way back in. He was attempting to ingratiate himself with me again. I was wrong before, I'm sorry. Please, we're in danger of falling apart as a family. Hearing his words, I could sense that John was indeed in trouble. I responded mockingly. Oh, right. Alex got fired, didn't he? And now he's spending his nights at the police station. Alex had been caught embezzling company funds and was under police investigation. John seemed shocked. He seemed shocked, at a loss for words. After a moment, John managed to speak. How did you know about that? More importantly, did you know Alex's company was recently acquired? The company that bought it is where I work. What? There was a sound of something dropping. Apparently, John had dropped the phone. John knew about Alex's arrest, but didn't know that my company had acquired his. I was working at a company making AI semiconductor chips, which decided to take over Alex's IT company. During the acquisition process, Alex's embezzlement came to light. Our CEO is strict about ethics and won't tolerate fraud. Immediately, criminal charges were filed, and most of the involved parties were arrested. The reason I started working at this company was when Alex wanted to study abroad. That's when I asked for a raise. The person who listened to me then was my manager. He was talented and had led several developments leading to patents. He told me he was about to start his own company. I can't fully utilize my abilities if I stay in the current company, he often lamented. This manager invited me to join his new venture. The salary might be low initially, but we will surely succeed, he said passionately. I believed this person would definitely succeed, so I decided to change jobs without consulting John. In fact, at that time, I was not only avoiding consulting John, but also avoiding speaking to him altogether. I thought I could manage for a while with my savings and severance pay. Initially, the salary at the new company wasn't much. But as we obtained several AI-related patents, the company's performance soared. The CEO praised me for making operations run smoothly and for aiding in the smooth progress of development. I was often told by the CEO, without you, I wouldn't have been able to concentrate on development. Indeed, when the CEO focuses on development, he tends to neglect other aspects like company management and sales. I took on tasks like negotiating with banks and developing new business clients. Since we started as a small company, I had no choice but to do it myself. As development progressed, we expanded the company and hired more people. The company's growth wasn't just due to my efforts. The AI semiconductor developed by the CEO played a big part. The CEO told me my salary would increase, but I feared that if John found out about my sudden salary increase, he would exploit it. So, I kept my salary the same as it was at my previous company. Instead, I received company stocks as a form of compensation. Alex's wrongdoing involved inflating bills in collusion with a trading company. He made it look like the inflated charges were from an overseas company introduced by the trading company to avoid detection. He had been doing this for at least 2 years. The police are rigorously investigating him for other potential crimes. It was surprising that Alex could come up with such a scheme. Involving an overseas transaction, as it seemed too complicated for him to plan. The trading company claimed they did it reluctantly at Alex's request. I suspected there was a mastermind behind this plot. My gut feeling was that John might be involved. You planned Alex's scheme, didn't you? I asked John directly. John stuttered and fell silent. No way, he did that on his own. Really? He's been doing it for quite a while now. In a way, I think it's a remarkable talent. I taunted John to see his reaction. Well, yes, but it's a crime. It's not right to call it talent. But using overseas companies might have been a smart idea. So, you did plan it and had Alex carry it out. Why would you think that? The part about using overseas companies wasn't reported in the media. The fact that you know about it means you were involved. You just revealed a secret. I could hear John grinding his teeth. I'll report this to the police. Even if I don't, I think Alex will eventually confess. Don't mess around. This is all your fault. John kept talking, but I hung up midway. I didn't want to talk to John anymore. After that, he called several times, but I ignored all of them. I understood that they were in trouble with Alex's arrest. But John had his own income. I couldn't fathom why they were so desperate for money. 3 months later, I got another call from John. I ignored it at first, but I needed to retrieve some belongings from the house, so I called John back. John said he wanted to meet because it was too much to discuss over the phone. I agreed and decided to visit the house. The next day, I went to the house where I had lived until. It was clear that the house had fallen into disrepair. Nothing seemed to have been maintained. The pathway to the entrance was covered in fallen leaves and stained with water spots. Even the doorbell didn't ring when I pressed it. Maybe it was broken. When I grabbed the doorknob, the door opened. It wasn't locked. As I stepped inside, a stale smell hit my nostrils. It was likely the smell of rotting garbage. They hadn't even taken out the trash. I called out loudly for John. After a while, a hoarse voice replied, and the door to the living room opened. I recoiled at the sight of the man who appeared. The man who appeared was emaciated, with sunken eyes, patchy and completely white hair. His complexion was unnaturally yellow. I stared at him, unable to recognize who he was. Then the man spoke. It was John's voice, to my surprise. Could a person change this much? John looked at me, his eyes widening. You seem different somehow. Do you think so? But this house has become quite neglected. John snorted and went back to the living room. I followed John into the living room and was shocked by what I saw. The room was littered with garbage. The room was littered with garbage, more like a trash house than just a messy one. John seemed unconcerned and sat down at the dining table. I attempted to sit too, but the table was cluttered with dirty dishes and glasses. Reluctantly, I carried the dirty dishes to the kitchen, which was also in a terrible state. The kitchen was also in a terrible state, but I chose to ignore it for now. After some tidying up, I sat down at the table, and John handed me an envelope. It had a hospital's name printed on it. Curious, I looked inside and found a medical report. It was John's diagnosis. I've got hepatitis. John spoke weakly. He used to drink heavily every day. I thought it was only a matter of time before his liver was affected, and now he had developed alcoholic hepatitis. He probably couldn't drink anymore. And a full recovery might be difficult. I read through the medical report. It also mentioned diabetes. I looked closely at John's face. You also have diabetes. With these levels, it's likely you have cirrhosis too. You figured it out. It's probably cirrhosis. John said, looking down. Should you even be here? Aren't you supposed to be in the hospital? Yeah, I wanted to talk to you, so I snuck out. This might be another one of John's strategies. Showing me this filthy house instead of a hospital, trying to gain my sympathy. I could see his sly intentions. I don't feel sorry for you at all. You guys turned this house into this mess, and I don't live here anymore. John's face darkened. You've changed. You seem stronger. Failing to elicit my sympathy, he now tried to flatter me. I couldn't quite gauge John's true intentions. Then, John began to talk about what had happened in the past 3 months. He said they lived normally for a while after I left. Alex's fiancée used to come twice a week to do housework. But then, Alex had a falling out with his fiancée, and they lost all contact. John and Alex didn't understand why she suddenly stopped communicating. Of course, they didn't. I had contacted her and strongly advised her to cut ties with Alex. She moved out, changed her phone number, and now lives in an apartment run by my acquaintance. I didn't want Alex's fiancé to end up like me. I met with her several times, explaining how despicable John and Alex were. Thanks to that, she woke up to Alex's vile nature and cut off all contact with him. Pretending to know nothing, I encouraged John to continue. Then, the house quickly became filled with garbage. It was no surprise, as I had been meticulously cleaning and taking out the trash every day. John coughed hoarsely. It was a wet, unpleasant cough. I took a mask out of my bag and put it on my face. Then came Alex's incident. This was also discovered by my company's investigation. After that, John's salary was their only source of income. Still, John seemed unable to break free from his lazy lifestyle. I looked around the room. There were empty liquor bottles and beer cans everywhere. It was clear what kind of life he led. In the end, I stopped making payments. The monthly rent of $2,000 must have been a heavy burden for John. John said with a trembling voice. It's been 3 months since that phone call. Why won't you help me? Isn't this too much? Where's the reason to help you? Tell me, why should I? We're still married, aren't we? Alex is in trouble too. Don't you want to help him? John clearly doesn't grasp what he has done to me. He's still selfish. Yes, exactly. I don't have the slightest desire to help you. John glared at me but soon looked down, defeated. Then, he looked up at me, begging. John's face twisted into a distorted smile. Your company is loaded, right? They even bought out Alex's company. They must be raking in profits. So, use that money to sort this out. I sighed deeply. That's not my money. It's the company's money. You can't differentiate between personal and company funds, that's why you got into this mess. You should study more. But our family is in trouble. Help us out. We're not family anymore. You left the divorce papers I sent you as they were, right? Of course I did. I don't want to divorce. I tore them up every time. I looked at John coldly. I've consulted a lawyer, and we're proceeding with a divorce through court. Normally, there would be mediation and discussion, but with the evidence of domestic violence and financial exploitation from John and Alex, I was able to take it to divorce court. John kept his head down, grinding his teeth. I said we're cutting ties. And you only contact me when you're in trouble. It's too convenient for you. We lived together all this time. I'm the one who married you. I hated that attitude. Always looking down on others but groveling before those stronger than you. You're the worst. That's too harsh. I've gotten sick. And it's an incurable disease. You could be a bit kinder to me. John looked up at me, trying to appeal with a pitiful face. There's no way I'll do that. You're probably just trying to sweet-talk me into being a donor for a transplant, but there's no way I'm doing that. John's expression vanished from his face. And you're going to be arrested by the police and end up in prison. You really told the police? John rose, pointing a finger at me. Of course I did. In the distance, the sound of a police siren could be heard. I stood up. John held his head, groaning inaudibly. I've cut ties with you. I have no intention of helping you. Pretending to be family only when it suits you. No matter how much you struggle financially or how miserable your life becomes, it has nothing to do with me. Go to hell, you scum. I left the trash-ridden house I had become accustomed to behind. John was arrested and received a guilty verdict. He's serving time in a medical prison. According to the lawyer, he's developed liver cancer from cirrhosis and doesn't have much time left. He'll likely spend the rest of his life in prison. I hope John reflects and atones for his sins. Alex confessed during interrogations that it was all John's plan. Alex tried to shift all the blame onto John. However, his contradictory statements were soon exposed, revealing his lies. The American police are quite capable. Given Alex showed no remorse, he received a severe prison sentence. His appeal was quickly rejected, and now he's incarcerated. Alex will have a hard time after release, with company repayments and alimony to his fiancée. He might even find prison more comfortable. Since standing up to John, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulders. I'm out and about more for work, and at the president's suggestion, I switched from glasses to contact lenses. Meeting more people, I started paying more attention to my appearance. Realizing that my attire affects others' attitudes, I began frequenting department store cosmetics sections, a place I once avoided. Places I would never have visited in the past now feel different. Initially intimidated, I learned not only about makeup but also about speech and posture, realizing the importance of appearance. Now, I dedicate time to grooming myself. I've noticed men looking my way more often, a new and curious experience for me. I used to be the one who averted my eyes, but now it's a curious feeling to see others do the same. My company has continued to grow steadily, and I have been appointed as an executive. Recently, in an executive meeting, the president announced his desire to focus on development and his intention to resign. Amidst the commotion, he nominated me as his successor. Surprised at first, I received blessings from all executives. Since then, my life has been filled with unfamiliar tasks and a hectic schedule. My days are busier but much more fulfilling than before. Thus, I've regained confidence and am enjoying life to the fullest.